Cool.
Hi, welcome to Securing Abundance. This is our news to help navigate today's ever-expanding information networks. And I've got a special guest with me, Amber Bennett. I want to call this the butterfly effect, Amber. So Amber, I met through the Abundance Digital community, and she was so kind to help me introduce our new newsletter, the Securing Abundance newsletter for my company. So, Amber, you said you took a look at some of the stories, and we're going to review some of the things. But before we get started, why don't you first introduce yourself?
Hi, Larry. Can you see me? I don't know if you can see me. You can probably just hear my voice. That's fine.
No, we can see.
Um, yeah, so my name's Amber Bennett. I'm half Aussie, half Australian. I'm part of Peter's Abundance community, which is just it's a pretty mind-blowing space to be involved in. Lots of positive, abundance-minded people. I love people. I love the world. I've been to over 30 countries. I feel like if you've got an abundance mindset, you generally think globally. So that's the most relevant thing I wanted to share is I've met a lot of people. I've like connected with like about 1,000 companies over the years. And I have no idea how many people that is, but that would be a lot of people. Um, and yeah, I'm really curious what today has in store because Larry loves to wax lyrical and he asks really good questions.
Well, thank you very much. Sometimes my daughter texts me all the time when we're in these meetings, especially with Peter's group. Is like, Dad, you're being annoying. Let somebody else talk.
Oh my gosh, no, not at all, Larry. It's like anytime I'm in the space of someone, like in the same space of someone with your experience, like I've only been working for nearly 20 years. You've got 2 decades on me. So
Yeah,
it's like
I'm an old guy.
you can crack on as much as you want and I'll gladly listen. I've done that a lot over my career and had so yeah, it's awesome. I've
No,
got no issue with it.
what are some of the jobs you've had in these 20 plus years?
Um, well, the first job I ever had was a checkout chick, which was great, standing all day and serving customers with minimal breaks, no complaining. And then what's really interesting, which I think more recently in the last 5 years, is my first job or contract was working with the Australian Rugby Union just in the lead up to the Rugby World Cup. So the energy there was like really dynamic, and they were all about um, optimizing their data. So my job was to clean a database of their membership of 10,000 entries. Now, it was like I thought my Excel training at university was cool. But to actually get in there and I was like, I've got to get the address right. And like I was very like, I went hard on it because it was like the value of what that meant to them to communicate and get their members engaged in rugby. And I was very, very passionate about sport. I'm like, this is so important that they can actually connect with them. Um, so that was my first job, and I feel like it's relevant to mention it here because Peter's all about data-driven optimism,
Absolutely,
and
absolutely.
maybe continuing on that thread. So I fell into the licensing industry, which I think is a $320 billion industry now. I never knew that consumer products had this whole engine behind it. Like I thought Lucasfilm made the toys, but there's like all these people that manufacture product or they design it and then they work with manufacturers and then there's retail. So yeah, I really had no clue. It was one slide in my university degree. And what was really interesting in there, other than all the cool films and the creative, was the data that they used to drive strategy. So that I would, pour over like, TV ratings and analytics about how families and kids engage with the content, which to me was really meaningful. I'm like, this isn't just throwing like, what is it? Mud on the wall. There's actually a strategy behind it rooted in data and psychology and that kind of thing. So yeah, I worked with a lot of entertainment companies, and then I lived in London, worked there, which was interesting. So I've worked with every continent.
What did you do in
which
London?
I work for Disney. So I'm half English, and because I'd worked with, I wouldn't say everyone before that, but pretty close to anyone that mattered. And and I was like, well, there's only one place I have to work. It's Disney. And I'll quickly tell you, I had I'd been backpacking, I'd burnt through my money, and I was like, I had an interview with the director and the head of HR, and then I had an interview with six people. And I was staying in a backpackers, and I went into an underground internet cafe, which was £1 all night. There was no air conditioning, and I had to do my presentation on High School Musical and Hannah Montana, a strategy. And
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
I was sweating like nobody's mother. And yeah, I got the job. Obviously, the presentation was half decent, and yeah, so I did the same sort of thing over there. Came back to Australia, did the same sort of thing, and then I've worked in the healthcare space in the last few years. My grandfather passed away from Parkinson's,
Hmm.
and everything changed after that. I had a little breakdown. I think as you do,
Oh, shit.
and just what's like meaningful and important. And again, on the data thread, when I've worked in the Parkinson space, being very intrigued on what the global landscape's like, to help drive solutions. And at the moment, I'm doing something similar in Alzheimer's research as well. So I think data optimism is definitely the way to go. And I'm really glad to be here and see what we can explore today.
Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. And the healthcare, especially, because of Peter,
Yeah,
always drives it into, and we've probably all been very frustrated in healthcare. But it's just an area that just has to be decimated and rebuilt. It's so sluggish. It's so
yeah,
from our side, from the information security side, we know all this. In fact, it drove a lot of the early regulations for healthcare, HIPAA in the United States.
mm,
And it's kind of what helped give a lot of my students a job, but at the same time, it's really created so much friction in getting anything done,
yeah.
and stuff. And now you were also, I missed it today. You were also in a healthcare presentation today that talked about a lot of that information, and it's a
Oh, was I
worldwide.
in a? Oh, yeah. So I attended Singularity University, which Abundance Digital is part of, which is where we met, that Peter Diamandis founded. And the head of Impact spoke, who was there for the launch of SU, Nathaniel Calhoun. I hope I said that right. And he was talking about, um, you know, ecosystems and the different options. So, one, do you build your own? Or two, do you go with a template solution? Or three, which is sort of off the radar that people aren't maybe really going after aggressively, which is open source. And it's been on my radar, but I wasn't like heavily engaged with it. And it was just really great to hear from an expert who's tapped in with what's going on globally and the scale of the numbers that they're talking about open source solutions. Like there's a healthcare records um, open source platform called DHIS2, where there's 2.4 billion people on it
Yeah, we
from
looked this up.
73 countries.
We looked this up, and very interesting. So this looks like it's a way to in fact the goal of it was to a standard platform for reporting, analysis, and dissemination. And the thing I think
Mm,
about standards and open source, you could be standard and open source.
mm,
Standards are important. I always say that we're navigating this road. It's like a regular road, a highway. And what you do in your car is, and what music you listen to, that's private. But I do
mm,
need you to follow certain things like red light equals stop, green light equals go, or else nobody can share the road, right?
mm.
There's certain things have to be public. We have to be able to see your license plate, but you can do certain things as long as it doesn't bother other people. But we need a standard, I can't say, oh, but in our country, red means go. Well, then we can't share the road. And
And how do you see the standards being applicable to a solution like this of this scale? Like, I haven't dug into it. Literally, I just got off the call, but it's 2.4 billion people. Like, what and their health data. Like, what do you think are the like top three standards that need to be priority?
oh, God, the major
Yeah,
thing because of my bias, I always look for authentication. How do we know who's who? And even
yeah,
that's like such a challenge. Like we know that this is Wikipedia, for instance,
yeah,
because of their certificate.
yeah.
They have a certificate, but this certificate system works okay for servers. It's been
Mm,
breaking down really badly. It's vulnerable to some attacks. And when it comes to people, it's not working right. We're supposed to all
mm,
have certificates at home, and we don't have many. People who are doing like blockchain and other
mm,
decentralized, they realize this is and where we are today. So we've got to come up with some standard, and I don't know
mm,
where we're going to go. I still like that. That's called the X.500 standard. The reason it's called ing.wikipedia.org, and it's a 509 standard certificate. I
mm.
think those certificates will stay. The problem is how do we check them? And these things
Mm.
change, yeah. But this will
So
be
I guess sorry, you've got me on a thread there. So you're talking about parent authentication, which is really important because it's in 73 countries and all these different governments are accessing it. So there's the
well, I
parent.
want everybody. I want everybody who's looking
Yeah.
at. So if you're looking at my medical records, first you need to know
Mm,
that it really is me. And I
yeah.
need to know who you are. Why are you
Mm,
looking at my records? Because you're my doctor? So a
mm,
lot of times when we grant permissions to people, we statically think, oh, I'll give it to Bob because Bob's good. Or we
mm,
say role based, I'll give it to the doctor. But why do I have that doctor? There's a lot of
mm,
doctors because my insurance company covers him this year and he's in my zip code. So we also need to be able to say, I'll let you, I need to know who you are, Amber, look at this part of it for this time period, you know.
mm,
And so it's like we want to know, and if you're coming from here, it's like, why is Amber coming from wherever Russia when I know she's not there?
mm.
So all these things have to be, to me, that's the hard part. That's what I do. I try to help people figure out who's who. Yeah.
That's really interesting. Who's who in the zoo? The Digi Zoo. I find that really interesting if you were to say take a step up and you're in like that big picture role and the authentication of your citizen population, if that's off the money and someone's swooped in and created all these fake profiles, that could impact your whole healthcare strategic approach or emergency response approach or whatever is within that framework. So yeah, the authentication is fundamental. I'm glad you
Yeah.
raised that because I was thinking, okay, well, what's the key here?
Well, I always say, all of your any SDLC. So you're familiar with Peter's mentor there, Dan Sullivan, right? From the
Yeah.
church, and he always talks about who, not how. And I say that's the first step in any development life cycle for anything. If you're a
Mm,
waiter, who's this food for? You don't bring it to the wrong guy. It's the great food, but you brought it to the wrong person. So we need to
mm,
know who. And it's very challenging. In the physical world, I look at you, but in the digital world, I don't have that. I have ones and zeros. And we're trying
mm.
to work out and we're coming up with ways they constantly, build upon each other. They, iteratively get better and better as people expose vulnerability and stuff, but we'll get it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because I mean you're not dealing well you I guess you're not the first thing is you're not dealing face to face and then you're dealing at scale.
Yeah.
And is it possible to deal face to face at scale? Well, no, because you can't sit in a Zoom room with, you know,
A
8 billion
billion, 8
people.
billion
It'd be sort of cool if you could. I don't know. There's something in that. I don't know what it is, but you know what I mean. Yeah, it's really interesting, really eye-opening. And there was another thing about we're talking about who's who. So Indian companies, they've developed a similar thing called MDSIP, and it was about national IDs, and they've got 75 million users. So there's these these organizations doing this work. It was just, yeah, it was really interesting. And the other piece on data was the people that are working on these open source platforms, what they're accessing is really progressive, and the scale of what they could access, the detail of what they could access, my mind was quite blown. And they were saying, well, you know, everyday Joe could potentially be more educated than the government. They had, I think it was in Colombia, they had identified every, well, they say every school, but every school in the country. So it's 52,000. I don't know the specific tale of that, but it was 52,000 schools, and it went across government, Catholic, religious, private. And the government said, we don't even know what those all are. We can tell you the government ones, but we don't know where the other ones. And this company, like, he showed the map of, they had plotted all the schools in Colombia and what their bandwidth speed was by school. And I'm like, the beauty of that data for cultivating strategy for kids, I was like, I was pumped. So there was a bunch of that stuff. I'm like, my brain's doing cartwheels right now. I didn't go on off mute and sing a yodel a song of joy, but that's how I was feeling.
Amazing. It's just amazing what they're doing with big data and being able to crunch it and find meaningful patterns and stuff, you know.
Yeah.
You were in the Peters AMA yesterday, and I typed in a little comment. You know how some people are like, yeah, I don't know, especially in my world, I know information security specialists who don't want to carry a cell phone because they don't trust the government spying on you. And I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
you know, you have an Alexa in your house, dude? They're listening to you. Well, I have
Yeah.
this thing, you know, that they're always listening. You know, your phone doesn't even have to be unlocked, right? If I say, hey Siri, she'll respond. Yeah, so she's listening,
Yeah.
locked or not, you know. But I have a reverse thing. It's like, yeah, they're listening, but it's not a human, you know, and their bias isn't to try.
Yeah.
You know, so this is a great story. And I realize I'm being paranoid. It's a subjective thing, whatever. It's just a coincidence. But my over the years, my ear, actually my right ear has developed what's called a station tube dysfunction.
Mm.
And it closes up, and symptoms have gone from I have tinnitus, and I get this ringing in my ear that just comes, or it's more of a buzzing, and then once in a while I would get this vertigo, and I had this. My phone is now playing something.
You sure you're not an angel, Larry? If you have ringing in your ears, that's generally what it means.
Well, I get diagnosed. Now, first, one doctor says we could put tubes in your ear, it'll force it open. And I had my children have had that done. And I read it and they said, well, in children, it eventually will heal up. But in adults, that operation almost never really works. And what's worse is because it doesn't heal and close up properly, I'll have to be careful about getting water in there for the rest of my life. You know, like, I don't want to do that, you know. So then and it gets really bad. It gets to the point where start getting vertigo, and it's really bad. I mean, like, I'll move my head, and then all of a sudden, it's like I'm on a roller coaster, just. And I'm told that happens, and there's nothing we can do. We can give you a painkiller that will help you, because what happens is, like, it lasts for about 30 seconds, but then for like 15 minutes, you feel like you were just dizzy, you know, like you were on that ride.
Yeah.
And so we can give you. I don't want to take that. And I go to Google, and I'm ready to, like, say you'll never kickbox again. You probably shouldn't even drive anymore. And this was just over this past summer. And I go to YouTube, and I put in, and I woke up and I said, dude, you're a hacker. You hack this.
Yeah.
I type in EA, and it says ear vertigo exercise.
Oh my gosh. Really?
It suggests I do the
Cartwheels?
Epley maneuver.
Oh my
The
God.
Epley maneuver is you turn
Oh,
your head
wow.
45 degrees, turn it back the
Yeah.
other way. And if it doesn't go away, try it 3 times. It worked on the first try.
Yeah, my God. I
30
love
seconds
this.
later, I was completely cured. It never came.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
This
so
really, Go ahead.
I was going to say it's those Google elves that are listening to me. It's the AIs just constantly trying to make our lives better. So I started developing this paranoid character. The Google's listening to you all the time. They got these
Yeah.
AIs that are trying to make our lives better. Keep your ears open.
Yeah.
They're here to help.
It's I'm so glad you brought this up because like looking at that, I think it's because there's so many things available to us these days. It's really easy to think, oh, I need some sort of sexy, complicated solution. Whereas this is proper old school, simple, like simple as it gets. And it was just a case of you having access to the tool to get that information.
I think there are two things that happen, and I really thank my Abundance membership and Peter. One is, thanks to Peter's recommendation, I got the book Breath. Or Breathe,
Mm,
whatever, by James Nestor, and I've really done my best to really focus on my breathing. And I sleep with a mouth guard that keeps my chin pulled out, and I tape my lips.
mm,
And I felt that already doing something to the ear. I could feel my ear opening up with that because it pinches. By having your overbite, it actually pinches that.
mm,
So opening it up brought that open. And then when I read this, I was like, oh gosh. So what I probably did over the year of doing the breathing better, it loosened
mm,
something up, and they call them crystals, whatever, got loose in my ear, and it tried to go out the entrance, and it's supposed to go out the exit. And by turning your head, it goes out the right way. Boom. it
mm.
was
Awesome.
so crazy how 30 seconds changed 5 days of basically resigning myself to thinking I'll never be able to drive a car.
Mm. That's amazing. So how did the breathing impact it? I'm interested to learn more about that because I've tried like Wim Hof before, and I think it's something I need to do more of. I've
Yeah.
done meditation and that kind of thing. But yeah, I'm curious how you think it impacted that and just generally your life.
Here is where I've come, Amber. It's so bizarre. So and I've been using the word currency to equal
Mm,
a couple different things. So currency could be money, but it also means you're current. You're staying now. You're in the here and now, and it's
mm,
also current, like a wind or electrical current. And I do Tai Chi, and Tai Chi talks about the theory of Chi energy, and people describe Chi as energy, But I said, well, what is Chi really? I mean, there's energy could be expressed. Is it voltage? Is it
mm,
Chi energy? And I was like, the Tai Chi, the yin yang is the Tai Chi. And when I've been practicing Tai Chi under another Abundance member, Tom Updegrove has been my coach for over 40 years. But when you breathe in, you're like you're the receptive, the yin energy, and then you breathe out, it's the yang energy.
mm.
And as I'm doing, after reading that thing, I really start focusing. I was like, when I breathe in, if I can, your mind tends to go. So you try to like have this, be here now, be current, but you
Yeah.
can't help it. You can't turn off your memories and your imagination. Your memory is the past. Your imagination is the future. So I breathe in and I go, and I just had this epiphany like around March. I go, I breathe in. And I was like, Larry, because of the butterfly effect, Amber,
Yeah.
I don't know what's in the air I'm breathing in. I don't
Yeah.
know what's in there. I'm taking a risk. I'm making
Yeah.
myself vulnerable. The alternative is death. So I have to
Mm.
breathe in. And so vulnerability brings life, but there's a
Yeah.
limit. There's a limit. And as I get to the top, we say that you don't breathe out like in and out binary. It's an analog. It's like a bicycle pedal. You don't just
Yeah.
from up and down. You go smoothly. So I smoothly start to exhale, and I go, all right, forget what you're imagining, Larry. Now let's get ground to yourself. Remember to exhale. Remember where
Yeah.
the posture ends. And now all of a sudden I got this epiphany where I'm going, when I breathe in, I'm imagining, but I have to have limits, and then I remember. And as long as in each cycle I don't vary, I don't imagine cross an entire breath cycle, or I don't remember across, but I keep that, then I say you're staying current. You're maintaining your
Mm.
current. And I don't know, it's just really, really made me feel positive this year. I keep saying, breathe in and imagine the most wonderful future. But as you breathe out, remember the lessons of the past.
Yeah.
Those who don't learn from history, forced to repeat it.
That's really interesting because I think I hold my breath without really knowing. I used to smoke. I've never said that publicly, and I'm like, oh,
Cigarette? You
just
smoke cigarettes?
I used to. And
Oh,
I've just like, I've never said that publicly, but it'll come up. So I might as well do it now. And, you know, I had this lung capacity of, I can't even tell you what it was like when I was growing up. Like, I just was, I'd feel myself and I'm like, can you still keep going? So it was just like, to smoke was just like the contradiction of this, like, I don't know, I can't explain my lung capacity, but I was just, yeah. Anyway,
so where is
so
it
I've,
now?
pardon?
Where's your lung capacity now?
Well, the thing is, I think this was part of the problem was I didn't feel too affected by it, you know, um, because I had this great lung capacity. So, I mean, now I got COVID and I think that's affected it a little bit, but it still feels pretty good. So, it's not ideal, obviously. It is what it is. But yeah, I'm really curious about the breath work because I feel like, well, it's been in this pattern of whatever the smoking pattern is. It's like, well, what energy will I have if I actually allocate the time to doing breath work that doesn't have that influence on it? You know,
I think
the smoke.
there's obviously a physical thing. I mean, we need oxygen,
Mm,
but there's also
yeah.
a very for me satisfying or I don't know that I feel that I'm in the here. I'm in the here and now and not wandering too far in the past and not or too far in
Mm,
the future. And I don't know, it's like that constant trying to be aware. I don't know how to put it, but I just feel better. I feel like I'm paying attention to others, that I'm
mm.
more available to others if I'm in that current state, and I'm currently listening to that. It's like, Dad, hello, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, yeah.
You're a very present person. Like you really feel your presence and your presence in the moment. So maybe that's the gift. Like I think when I smoked, I would think so far out in the future and so far back in the future. And there's no point in being stuck in the past. And like, I mean, when I'm talking in the future, like 250 years, and like sometimes you've just got to like pinch yourself and go, hey, it's 2022. Like,
Or even, hey, it's time to do the dishes, you know?
yeah. Oh, that's funny. And I love how you described this current thing. That's what really got me going because I've been researching, like going through grief, and I've been researching, I'm doing meditation and that kind of thing. And the HZ frequencies that are out there for healing different things. And sorry, I don't know them off the top of my head, but I was like, okay, well, there's some pretty crappy stuff going on Earth. There's a lot of good stuff. Like, I know Peter doesn't really like to talk about XYZ, and, the curve of war has declined over time, but the reality is there's still things going on. I'm like, so the Earth still needs healing. And I was looking at, okay, well, what's the frequency of Earth? And then I listened to these different frequencies, which are for healing and I don't know, being calm or like whatever it is, the different things. And then this all got me to, oh, okay, well, there's this symbiosis of the HZ of the Earth and then our core frequencies. I'm still on your current thread, by the way. And then I'm like, oh, and then you mentioned patterns before. And one of the key things out of the previous session was observers, uh, these guys that were observing patterns of human movement from space. And it all got me thinking this symbiosis of Earth and the humans together, um, because there is, I guess, a lack of symbiosis at a big picture level. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the climate change issue. I was thinking, so from space, could we actually measure and analyze and research this currency, this current that you mentioned, these frequencies that you mentioned, and where are the pockets of optimization? Like what frequencies are happening here that we could do over here, that kind of thing. I don't know if anyone's doing that.
It's reminded me of this. So, the Gaia theory, what you're saying. That in the way I had this explained to me was that the Earth itself is a living organism, and we're just like cells in it, And so
Mm,
it sounds like maybe could we have something from space examine it from that holistic way?
exactly. I think, I love the Pale Blue Dot Carl Sagan video.
Sure,
You
sure.
know the one?
I believe
Um,
so. It's when we saw that little view of Earth from, like, I forget, it was like toward Pluto. It was when Viking, I think, was going to leave our solar system forever, and we got that little teeny. Is that the one you're talking about? That little speck? Everything
yeah,
we knew, everything.
yeah. And it gives you like perspective. It's like we're a mode of dust in time, but we can have such an impact on the legacy for future generations. And but we're not much in the theme of the universe, but are we? So yeah, we might as make the best of it while we can. So it's really, guess it comes down to understanding uh, our energy. Yeah, it's about research for understanding the energy of the planet and us together. Um, Yeah, you've really got me
Right.
going, Larry. I'm really quite curious about this. I looked up a little satellite to buy because I came across CubeSats and
Well, I tell you what, we went on and we didn't even look at my newsletter, but I was
I
enjoying.
know.
That's fine.
I
Let's
was
take a
just
quick
thinking
look.
that.
So for this first episode, this is, by the way, the Future Loop engine was developed by actually Morgan McDermott for Peter Diamandis as to be like a virtual Peter. And I got involved in 2017, I think it was, when I signed up for the group. They asked a couple of people, would you like to be part of the team to help train the AI, look for good news, good things that are getting it. And the idea was to countermeasure, Peter calls it CNN, constant negative news. It's not really news
Mm.
that helps us through our day. It's just stuff to try to get you to buy pillows or whatever. So I was very excited, very honored to be part of that. And then earlier this year, they opened up the AI's engine, which is called Einstein. And we got to be one of these early adopters. So securing abundance is my use of Einstein to look for good security news. And but please, you can get to it from my website. Internet Defense. Oops. And right up here, newsletter. So if you guys would sign up, and every time people click on it, that's helping to train Einstein, and it's learning it's learning what's important about what you want. So I really love what Morgan did. I would, when Peter first
Mm,
introduced him, the first time I saw him on one of Peter's talks, I was like, oh, this guy knows it, So I was
yeah.
so honored to be able to be part of this. So I encourage people to look it up again. It's as you use it, it'll start finding what you like and what's important in your business to help you find not stuff to scare the crap out of you, just a little piece of things that you could use to help, get your business and sail it into the information superhighway there. So, and I also want to point out, since we both met at Abundance, and I'm an information security professional, we always teach people that the goals of information security are to protect the confidentiality, the integrity, and the availability of information. That's our goal. And confidentiality, I say, is great, but it's over uh, stressed in most information security programs. It's like the U.S. government didn't even think about integrity availability. We classified as top secret, secret, confidential, unclassified. But what about integrity? And we say, like, nobody's allowed to, if you have only secret clearance, you can't read up, but you could write up. So that means there's a bunch of stuff at top secret that's junk. Blockchain technologies help us provide integrity. The authentication systems I mentioned that I'm really into, and PKI, they help me know that it really is Zoom or Dropbox or whatever. It really is them. So this is much more important. I say, even as a person, to get a job, some jobs like, hey, you got to be able to keep a secret because loose lips sink ships. And sometimes that is important. We're developing a super product. I don't want you to, leak that out on LinkedIn. But much more important is, are you the person you claim to be? Are you lying on your resume? And most important is, I don't care how good you are, like I'm a musician. If you don't show up for gigs, then it's not good. We can't use you if you're unavailable. So I always say, this is nice, but as we move from scarcity to abundance, I say, if there's not enough water to go around, the mountain people and the valley people will compete. And they're going to lie to each other about stuff, just like the Eagles lied to the Dallas Cowboys. He made it look like he was going to throw, but he ran, you liar. But when there's enough water to go around, the mountain people are best known, I say, for their strawberries. They make the best jelly, and they're going to bring it with the valley people who make the best peanut butter. And it's much more important that really is valley people peanut butter. It's the best, and it wasn't damaged in shipping, and that's what blockchain does for us. And cloud is making all of our information available. So I just get that little plug in there. But other than that, Amber, I appreciate going off topic. It was great getting to know you more. And the other thing is our goal is never to help you again compete. I'm trying to help everybody, without hurting anyone. That's I think it's where we can go with this. So awesome. But
That was a beautiful wrap up, Larry. Yeah, I think you really touched on where I was before I jumped on here, which was an open society where everyone contributes and adds value. So,
and then let's close it on one of my favorite things that just Google thought I would like to know. My elf at YouTube said, Larry, I think you're going to want to watch Sadhguru. And they were right. And Sadhguru said, we're not clones. Humans are not clones. Every one of us is like and I forget what he used, but I'll say a rose bush is what I tell my children. And your flower is going to be different than anybody else. And he says, why would you want to get into a bucket where you compete with everybody else and try to be the best at that job? When if you just be yourself, you'll be the best self ever, and the world could use why you're different, and so like Peter always says, find your passion, but I absolutely agree with that and when if the rose bush doesn't produce a flower, we don't yell at the rose bush, well, there was something innately wrong with you. It's obviously didn't have a good environment, we try
but
to
the flowers are always there anyway. Sometimes it just needs a, a good watering can.
Exactly. It needs a good
Someone,
environment, a supportive environment.
yeah,
If the seed lands on a rock, nothing's going to grow, right? It's got to land in
yeah.
the soil. Amber, thank you. Thank you so much. I, I,
No worries.
I always get to worry that I'm like the geek nerd, that I'm going to like talk too technical and then just
Oh
not
my
get anything
gosh.
out.
Larry, geek nerds are the best. You're like an encyclopedia of history and I don't know, interested in creative things. I would say sometimes that label can be limiting, which is why I think it's really important to keep it out of the school system, is to label people geeks or nerds, because you are, in my experience, just a wealth of information. And when you know more, you have a more balanced 360 view of the world. So, yeah, it's actually a big upside versus I'm not sitting here judging you. So,
No, I just want to be a good collaborator. We always say, you don't have eyes in the back of your head. When my wife will have a difference of opinion on raising children, she goes, "Do you think you're right?" And I said, "No, I'm glad there's two of us."
yeah. Keep the missus happy. It's a good idea.
Awesome, Amber. Thank you so much. I hope we can do
Thank
this again.
you.
God bless.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Awesome.
Bye.
Bye
They're
bye.
going to stop the recording.
Yeah, I'm going to stop.